So congratulations on making it to the end of chapter 3. We've learned a great deal in this chapter. We've looked at how to open up Xcode and download it, and how to add labels and text fields and buttons to the main storyboard. We've even written a little bit of Swift code which responds to the app loading, and then we wrote a bit more which responded to a particular tab. So we've made a lot of progress towards making some decent apps. We're now going to make our first app from scratch. Now, with all of these challenges at the end of each chapter, what I'd recommend you do is do your best to actually make the app completely on your own first. And then, and only then, watch the video and watch me do it. You'll learn a lot more, generally speaking, when you're learning how to code. The more you do yourself, the more you will learn. And you've got almost all the skills to build this particular app. There's a couple of things that I'm going to do that I haven't shown you how to do, but I think you can probably work out. So essentially the app's going to work like this. We're going to have a little bit of text showing the user what to do, and then we're going to have a text field for the user to enter their cat's age in human years, and then we'll use the simple calculation that a human year is worth roughly 7 cat years to convert that to their age in cat years. So very simply, if we put the number 2 in here, our app will multiply that by 7 and respond by saying that the cat is 14 years old. So do your best now. I'm going to pause to give you a chance to pause the video and do as much of that as you can. You may need to do a little bit of Googling to work out how to do a couple of those extra things, but all the information is easily accessible for you. My general advice, if you're looking for how to Google something in terms of coding, is just Google the name of the language and then what you want to do. So for example, Swift, multiply 2 numbers. You might need to do that, for example. Okay, so I'm going to pause now and give you a chance to get as far as you can with this app on your own. Great. I hope that went well for you. I'm going to start from scratch. Let's see how we go. So I'm just going to click File, New, Project. And I'm going to do the same as before, Single View Application. I'm going to call it Cat Years. I'm going to leave everything else as it is. So Swift, iPhone, no other changes. I'm going to put it in my files folder for this course, and then click Create. Excellent. While that's processing everything, I'll just resize the window for you. There we go. Great, so we're ready to go. Let's start by adding our components to the main storyboard or the view controller. So I'm going to start with a label. Let's drag that in. Again, I'm ignoring the blue dotted lines. They will be useful later on, but we're not going to worry about them for now. I'm going to need a text field for the user to enter the age. And I'm going to need a button for the user to press when they've entered their age. Okay, now I'm not going to worry too much about styling those at this stage. I want to have 2 things showing at once, and I want this to be the preview. So I'm just going to click there, go down to main storyboard preview so I can see exactly what this looks like while I just lay out everything nicely. Let's get rid of that because I don't need that for the moment. And there we go. We've got our label, our text field and our button, and displaying nicely on our screen there. So I'm just going to very quickly play around with these a little bit. So I'm going to, I've just zoomed out a touch there so I can see the whole thing. So I'm going to change the text on the label to the title of our app, Cat Years, and I'm going to change the button to Find Age in years. Great. I'm actually going to need another label to tell the user what to put in that box. So let's just bring in our right panel there and then label. Lovely, and we'll just change the text to, keep it simple, how old is your cat? Question mark. And then while we're here, I'm going to increase the text of the title a little bit. Great, and now everything looks as I would like. I'm just going to center the text in everything so that everything can be nicely centered and aligned. Don't need to worry about the button really. Okay, great, so let's get rid of that now, and we don't need the view on the left either. Bring that back in, so I'm just going to position everything more or less centrally. Those of you who have done any app development will know that there's a much better way of doing this. And we'll look at that in more detail in the next bit of the course. What I'm doing here is using this particular blue dotted line to make sure that everything is center aligned with the center of the button. So now, as you can see here, everything looks pretty nice. It's moved slightly to the left. So I'm just going to move everything around a bit. Now, this may feel a little bit arbitrary, and I hope it does, because one of the reasons I'm doing it this way at the moment is to show you why we need something called auto layout later on, which will allow us to center this really nicely no matter what screen size you're dealing with, no matter what orientation. And that's really important, but it's also a little bit complicated, so I'm saving it for the next chapter so we can focus on other things for now. But we will look at that in more detail in the next chapter. Okay, great, so I'm liking that. I think that's absolutely fine. One thing I'd like to do is add a little picture, because it looks a little bit boring. So adding a picture in Xcode is pretty straightforward. You may have had a Google and figured out how to do it yourself, but if not, this is how it's done. First, of course, you need to find an image that you want. I did a little bit of Googling and I came across this one, which I thought was quite cute and nice. You can, of course, use a different one or any kind of image you like, really. So I've just control-clicked there and I'm going to click Save Image As. I'm going to pop this on the desktop and I'm going to call it cat.png. It's a PNG image, so cat.png is a perfectly good file name. There we go. That's downloaded. So how do we get that into our app? Switch back over to Xcode. And now if I just go to the Finder and look at the desktop, there's my cat.png image. I want to drag that in, so I need to see the file structure. So I'm going to bring back in the left pane, back over to Finder, and then I'm just going to drag it in like that. Now, if we had a big file structure with a lot of images and different files and views and things like that, it would be worth creating a subfolder for all of our images and different types of files, but we're going to leave that for a future project, and for now we'll just put it in with the rest of the files. So you can see we've now got a dialog box. We want to copy the item in, so that's fine, and we'll let it create the folder references, etc. So just click Finish, and now cat.png is right there. How do we put it into our app? Well, you may be able to predict from what we've done so far. We bring back in the right pane and we search for image, and we've got the option of an image view. And then we can simply drag that in. Again, I'll try and align it with everything else. There it is, great. And all we need to do is up here in the attributes inspector down here, again, we've got various options. The main one is to choose which image we want to use. We've only got the one, so cat.png. There it is. So now our image is in our app. I'm just going to drag it down a bit so it looks about the right size. Fantastic. I think that's a nice, friendly, it cheers the app up a little bit. So now, always worth, now that we've more or less finished our layout, just having a look at it on a real iPhone. Well, on the iPhone simulator at least. Let's check it out. It should look pretty much identical to that. There we go. Great. So it's a nice basic layout. Okay, so now we want to switch over to doing a little bit of code. So I don't care about the preview anymore, and I'm not interested in the attributes of anything. So let's get up viewcontroller.swift. You remember from the last video that this is where we put all our code that we want to run on this particular view or this particular screen of our app. And so I'm going to set you a little challenge here. If you haven't done it, if you haven't finished the app already, the mini challenge is going to be to set the app up so that every time we tap on this button, it logs the value of what the user has entered into this text field. Give it a try. Did you manage it? Okay, well, this is the way I'd recommend doing it. So I'm going to right click on the text field or control and drag into there, and I'm going to create an outlet which will let me refer to the text field, and I'm just going to call it cat age, like that, and then connect. So the cat age variable refers to this particular text field, and then I want to create a function which will happen every time the button is pressed. So I right click there, this time I want an action, and once again we'll call it button pressed, and it's going to happen when the user's finger lifts off their screen, so essentially when the button is pressed. Okay, great. So to log something, we use the print ln command. So if I wanted to just log test, I would do that. So that would log test every time the button is pressed, but I want to get the value of this text field. So to refer to that text field, I use the cat age variable. Now, how do I get the value of it? It's pretty straightforward. I put a dot because I want some property of the cat age, and you'll see that Xcode actually predicts what I want, and it predicts it right. What I want is the text of that field, so the value of the field essentially. So I use cat age dot text, and that will then log whatever text is in the cat age field there. That should do it. Let's bring in our log at the bottom and then run this app, see how it looks. There it is. Okay, let's see if everything works. So let's say my cat is 24. It's a very, very old cat. Find age. There it is. Fantastic. And of course, I can enter whatever I like in there at the moment. I want to enter the word tree and then enter that. It logs that. Brilliant. So we've got our app doing something. Whenever the button is pressed, the content of that field is loaded. So we're pretty close. One thing that we're going to want to do is have a new label which will give us a bit of space to enter the new age in it. So let's do that now. So I'll bring in the right pane. I'm sure you know how to do this. So a new label, which we'll put there. Whoops. There we go. So that's going to be, it's going to start off to be an empty label because we don't actually want any text there at all. But I'm going to stretch it out to the edge, and I'm going to center the text there. Let's now get rid of that because we're going to need a bit of room. To work with that. Okay, lovely. So I want this label to be empty initially. There we go. But I still want to be able to refer to it. So I've just control dragged there. And I'm going to click message because this label is going to contain the message to the user. Okay. Another quick challenge for you. Can you make it so that you, instead of logging whatever the user has entered in the text field, it actually displays it in this label? I hope you managed that. It's pretty straightforward. We just want message.text. Again, Xcode knows what we want, and we want to set that equal to catAge.text. That's it. Simple as that. So we're setting the message text equal to the text of this particular field. And again, whenever you change something like that, always worth running it and making sure that it still works. Here's our app. Let's take a look. So change it to numbers 5, and there it is. It's changed that for us. Now notice one thing I had to do there was change the keyboard type to the number keyboard because I wanted to enter a number. Now we know that the user is going to want to enter a number, so it's an annoying bit of functionality if they have to change the keyboard every time. We did see this a few videos ago, but it's quite easy to change. We just bring in the attributes inspector in the right bar and we change the keyboard type to the number pad. And then by default it will give us the number pad, which will just save the user having to switch to it. Okay, so we're nearly there. We've just got two things that we need to make this app do. One of them is take the age that the user has entered and multiply it by 7 to get the number of cat years, and then the other is process that nicely. We don't really want just the number to appear. We want some kind of message that says, your cat is however many cat years old. So multiplying the catAge.text by 7 requires us to do something which gives us an opportunity to talk a little bit about variable types. So this catAge.text is a string. A string variable is essentially just a collection of letters and numbers and possibly symbols. Now, a string variable is no good for doing mathematical operations like multiplying by 7. So we need to convert the catAge.text from a string variable to a number variable. In this case, we're going to use an integer being a whole number. So we're going to convert the catAge.text from a string variable to an integer, a whole number. So to do that, we use the keyword var to create a new variable. And I'm just going to call it age. And we're going to set that equal to catAge.text. I'm using enter to take the prediction. And we're going to run a function toInt. Like that. So you can guess what that does. It takes the catAge.text, which is the value of this field, and converts it to an integer, a number, essentially. Great, and now we can do mathematical operations on it. So we're going to want to multiply it by 7. So we simply say age is equal to age, and then we use the asterisk, that's shift 8 for multiply. So you can see we've got an error here, even though everything seems to be fine. What we need to do to get rid of this error is pop an exclamation mark after the second age there. And you can see that does clear the error. Let me explain what's happened there. Remember, we've got this age variable from converting the text of the catAge to an integer, to a number. Now there's a chance that this process failed if the user didn't enter anything, or if they didn't enter a number, or indeed if this doesn't exist for some reason, then this will have failed. So trying to do something with this number might cause an error in the app. So that's why the app gave us that error there. What this exclamation mark is saying is we're saying, no, don't worry, I'm sure it'll be fine. I want you to use this age variable anyway, even if you think it might be empty. And this may cause our app to crash, and we'll see ways to deal with that in the next chapter. But for now, this will be fine for at least getting rid of the error and getting the app to work. So now it's just a matter of updating our message text here. So let's do that. This time we're going to do it in a slightly more interesting way. Rather than just displaying the number, we'll say your cat is a certain number of years old. So this then brings in the question of how do we get our age variable into our string here. And the way we do it, I'll show you the syntax here, is we use a backslash and then we put the variable that we want to put in brackets like that. And you can use that to put any type of variable into a string, or almost any type. So backslash and then brackets and then your variable name. And we do need a second exclamation mark there to force unwrap this variable and to say, no, I'm absolutely sure that it will be fine. Honestly, you can do it. So that's it. Let's run the app and see if we can make this work. And it should multiply the age by 7 and then display the age in a nice format there. So here we go. If I pop in the box there, you can see we've got our nice number input rather than the standard keyboard. And then let's put in 5. Fantastic. Your cat is 35 years old. So it's done the multiplication for us and it's put the variable nicely into our string. So that's it. That's your Cat Years app up and running. I hope you've managed to do that as well. And that marks the end of chapter 3. So congratulations on making it this far. Let's take just a moment to see how much you've covered. If we look at the course content, you obviously signed up and went through those introduction processes. You might have installed OS X on your Windows PC, which is a great achievement in itself, so well done. And then the processes that we've gone through, we've looked at installing Xcode. We had a good look around the Xcode interface and see how it all fit together. We then started building our interfaces with putting in labels, text inputs and buttons. You then ran a little bit of code. You found out how to respond to the user tapping on a button. And then finally, you've built this great app, Cat Years. So congratulations on all that you've done so far. And in the next chapter, we'll look at Swift in a lot more detail. So we'll start getting some proper programming in, looking at variables, arrays, if statements, loops, and a lot more before going on and building some really quite great apps. So congratulations, take a moment out to realize how far you've come and how much you've covered, and I'll see you very soon in chapter 4.